fourth edition of INDCON, focusing on the Kolkata and Guwahati region. INDCON is a revolutionary online conference between industry and academia to drive research and development policy reforms in India. This three-day virtual conference will have different sessions to align together with the theme of this year, which is building stronger research and development ecosystem, enabling Saksham Bharat Abhiyan, which will also witness some of the industry specialists sharing their expertise and enlightening all of us. I shall over to my technical team.
Becoming a global leader is a noble dream. What is our strength as India? It is knowledge. The strength of a nation in the digital age we find ourselves in is governed solely by its research and development index. The speed by which technology is accelerating has been unmatched since the dawn of humanity. India boasts of the largest manpower pool under the age of 30 in the world. Though we have potentially a gold mine of researchers with us, we barely produce any research. We have to import technology from nations like China. Our universities and our industry do not seem to share the deep connection that they do in countries like the US or China. That is why the IMC's Knowledge Committee, in association with MIT World Peace University, are hosting INDCON, a revolutionary online conference between industry and academia. The way for India to become a global leader lies in its repository of knowledge. INDCON is the way to do so.
Thank you so much. INDCON 2021 is organized by IMC Chamber of Commerce and Industry under the leadership of Shri Rajiv Podar and Knowledge Committee Chairman Shri Rahul V. Karat. The Center for Industry Academia Partnership at MIT World Peace University has taken up the responsibility of organizing INDCON across 11 cities of India, which should include industry leaders, academicians, as well as representatives of the government under the dynamic leadership of Mr. Praveen Patil, the CEO of SIAP, along with Dr. Prasad Khandekar, the chairman of the organizing committee. Ladies and gentlemen, please allow me to briefly introduce SIAP. The Center for Industry Academia Partnership was started with the intention to build collaborations with industry and academia to encourage the maximum potential and impact outcomes. This step is taken in the right direction to develop the innovative solutions through process-driven approach. It is indeed my deep honor and privilege to introduce Mr. Praveen Patil, the CEO of the Center for Industry Academia Partnership, who has been a pioneer in developing it and taking this initiative ahead and bringing about a significant change in the university. After a thought-provoking sessions for the first 2 days, I welcome you to this session, the theme of which is Best Practices in Research and Development, India and other top 10 countries in research and development academic institutions to strengthen research and development within the university. The moderator of this session is Dr. Shubhalaxmi Joshi, Associate Dean, Faculty of Science, MIT World Peace University. However, before formally handing over the session to ma'am, I shall request the technical team to relay the session video.
Fundamentally, companies spend on R&D to stay ahead of the curve. While sales and operations keep companies afloat, R&D is among the tools that companies must leverage to evolve and prepare for the future. Important objective of the decision process is to build organizational commitments step by step, so that the decision leads naturally to effective action. R&D management should understand all potential drivers of change and incorporate their impact in decisions. For this reason, the decision process must be fair and open, with ample opportunity for participation of all relevant individuals and functions.
Thank you so much. Today, we are deeply honored to have very esteemed members on our digital dais. We have amongst us Mr. Prem Motwani, Director, Japanese School, New Delhi. He is also associated with the Japanese department at JNU. Dr. Roshan Palewar, CEO of DocRoche Global Solutions, and Ms. Kajri Misra, Dean, School of Urban Development and Governance, Xavier University, Bhubaneswar. Before formally handing over the session to Dr. Shubhalaxmi Joshi, I have a request to all the participants. Kindly type all your questions in the question and answer section that is provided, and each of the questions shall be taken up as the session progresses. Over to you, Dr. Joshi.
Thank you, Tanika. Good afternoon, all panel members and dignitaries on this virtual dais post-lunch session on research and development, India and other top 10 countries in research and development, academic institution to strengthen research and development within the university. To begin with session, I would like to introduce all esteemed panel members today. We have with us Professor Prem Motwani, who is a director of Japanese School, New Delhi since last 10 years. Sir is awarded with Japanese Foreign Minister Commendation Award by Japanese government in 2015 for the promotion of Japanese studies in India. Professor Motwani is decorated with Japanese highest honor for an academic for the Order of Rising Sun Gold Rays with Nick Ribbon in 2020. Sir has also authored many books and translated 10 books on Japanese management into English. Sir has published 20 papers in international academic journals. The next esteemed speaker with us is Dr. Roshan Palewar, who is the CEO of DocRoche Global Solutions, a leading global pharmaceutical industry, and he has 14 plus years of professional experience in the international awards. To name a few, Sir has been awarded with Pharma Ratna Award and Top Pharma Innovation Award and many more. We have with us the next eminent speaker is Dr. Kajri Misra. She is a professor and dean at Xavier School of Human Settlements, Xavier University, Bhubaneswar. Madam is a PhD in planning from Cornell University, USA, and she is a Bachelor of Architect from Bombay University. Dr. Kajri Misra has over 3 decades of teaching, research, and consulting experience in urban and rural planning as well as management. She has pioneered the first MBA Urban Management and Governance program in the country. Now, to begin with the opening remark, I request Professor Motwani sir to please address us on this particular theme.
Yeah, thank you very much. Good afternoon to everyone. I'm really grateful to the organizers for this opportunity today. Although the theme of this session is best practices in R&D, but in the backdrop is the larger theme. That is how to resurrect Indian manufacturing, which has not gotten off the block, despite the intent of successive governments. So in this connection, I would like to put forth some of my arguments here. One is R&D in the traditional sense is not the answer right now. R&D is a long-term investment, and there is no denying the fact that India too needs to invest much more in R&D than it has done so far. However, developing technology and new products that can match global products and sell globally is a long haul process. And for that, we need to stop the practice of buying solutions and focus on developing our own solutions. And when we talk of Atmanirbhar Bharat and Make in India or Make for World, it signifies India's aspiration to be a powerful trading nation on the back of quality products, competitive cost and delivery, and integration into the world economy. And also avoid cheaper imports from China, which is our immediate issue. And we need to do it in quick time. Therefore, as I said earlier, R&D in the traditional sense will not give the immediate solution. Now, point number 2 is what gets measured gets managed. Make in India and Atmanirbhar Bharat in their current form are no more than aspirational goals. Quantitative and qualitative goals and targets have not been defined. So India therefore needs to first diagnose the current status of Indian manufacturing and Make in India, define the national competitive advantage it wants to achieve based on comparison with peer countries. And then the government needs to extend the focused policy support, and strategic investment needs to be made by the industry in R&D. And the academia also has to take up this kind of research in the university. And we must not forget that low-cost manufacturing has no future. An Oxford study reveals that 60% of the present shop floor jobs will be automated in the next few years. So what is the alternative then? In the intervening period, India can make use of Japan's known best practices in manufacturing of using collective wisdom of all the functions, including R&D, production engineering, sales and marketing, operations, and supply chain, based on participative management, resulting in continuous improvement in QCD, that's quality, cost, and delivery, as well as productivity by investing in people. And it is something that is either missing or highly deficient in India due to a variety of reasons. This too is, of course, not an immediate solution, but by tweaking HR practices, we can make a quick beginning without losing any time. In any case, we need to adopt it, and it is earlier the better, because collective wisdom approach is a better option considering the current stage of India's economic growth and manufacturing, and can always be used to complement the traditional R&D approach. It will also provide opportunities for growth and development to the blue-collar workers and resurrect Indian manufacturing in short to medium term. I shall elaborate on these points and introduce the Japanese best practices in this regard when I come back for my presentation later or during the Q&A. Thank you very much.
Sir, you can go ahead with your presentation.
Okay. So I would like to share my screen.
Yes, sir. You have been given those rights.
Okay. Are you able to see?
Yes, sir. It's visible.
Okay. Okay. Sorry. Yeah. So you see, actually, one thing I need to clarify upfront is that in Japan, many of you might be aware that they don't believe in training people or say recruiting postgraduates. So traditionally, B schools have never been popular in Japan, and they always take young people, say engineers also, immediately after graduation. And then they are supposed to do research in the company. So that is one big difference between, say, Japan and elsewhere. And you have seen that in Japan there is, I mean, it's known for global brands and global companies, and they have done really very well in manufacturing in the post-war years. And still, Japan's identity is tied to manufacturing, even 60 years later, 70 years later. So the Japanese approach to this, say, for existing product is like, say, um, when you want to be an exporter, you need to excel in quality, cost, and delivery. Now, these are the three most important prerequisites. So, say like in Japan, in existing products, how they really do it is that you might have heard the term Kaizen costing. Now, Kaizen costing is that improve the cost or reduce the cost by doing VAVE, that's value analysis and value engineering. Now you know that Japan in 1970s had a fixed exchange rate of 360 yen to a dollar, and within 20 years it became 100 yen. So for a manufacturer, it has to be viable at much below 100 yen to be able to generate profit. So like Toyota, which is very famous, they have generated about 40 million number of cumulative Kaizen till 2011 and generated it generates operating profit in excess of 2 trillion yen annually. Another industrial machinery manufacturer is Fujitsu Fanuc, which publicly announced in 1980s that it can, be viable with as little as 20% capacity utilization and can compete with others with the US dollar as strong as yen 70 to the dollar. Now, this is why I'm bringing this in, is that Indian manufacturing today suffers from this, that we are not able to compete in terms of cost with the Chinese products or cheaper imports which are coming in. So that is one I wanted to make. Second is the bottom-up and top-down approach. Now, in typically we expect that R&D needs to address such issues, whereas in Japan the approach is that up to the chronic level, the process owners, they are supposed to solve the problems, and then the engineering solution is obtained, whatever cannot be done by the operations. So through these small group activities, where you have members from all the functions, I mean related functions, that you take up those problems and then solve them. Then there is obviously there has to be a very robust feedback system for improvement in future NPD, that is new product development. So the requirements to really implement this system is that you have to have fully empowered, trained workforce. They have to be trained in problem solving, or they have to be given lifelong training instead of just job specific training, and team-based activities with strong mentorship, and as I said earlier, strong engineering support. And above all, then the manufacturing discipline is required. So this is how, very briefly I have, because of the paucity of time, captured how they approach their existing products to continually improve it, with R&D also being a part of it. Now, coming to the other side of it, that is the new product development. Now, it is a design thinking approach, and it's hands-on iterative process. So it is like finding solutions to the past as well as the existing problems. So here you have any new product to be developed. You have target costing. Target costing is that what is the price which the customer is willing to pay, and based on that, the project will not get a go ahead till the target cost has been met, or even the target quality has not been met within the specified cost. So it is essentially profit management through cost management. Then point number 2 is that vertical startup. You might have again heard this term, but then it is the upstream solution to problems, which can reduce the cost of poor quality. Because if you have problems in operations, then that means a lot of waste has been generated, or the cost has been added, because the processing cost, labor cost gets added to it. So if you take it to upstream, then you are able to save on the cost of poor quality. And they also have these defined targets that R&D is responsible for zero post mass production defects, or say straight pass ratio at par with existing products. Now, just to elaborate on this, in India, I've interacted with the industry for more than 2 decades now, and I've seen that any new product which comes in, it has a very low straight pass ratio, and a lot of ECN, the engineering change notes, get generated, and a lot of design changes happen. So it goes back and forth, and it takes minimum of 3 to 6 months to stabilize a new product in mass production. So that is another major difference. Then this DFMA, this is Design for Manufacturing and Assembly. So easy to make products, work content reduction to improve productivity. These are the goals and targets of the new product development or the design team. Then you have robust cross-functional management. Now, this is something where I feel that India is very weak, that we do not have very strong cross-functional management. Like in Japan, QCD is the joint responsibility of everyone. So in Japan, the design engineer starts working from the shop floor. So first 3 years he has to spend on the shop floor to understand that how a product is made, what kind of difficulties are there. And when he starts working as a designer in the R&D, then he has to address those issues. Then another important point, which again in India I find is very weak, is the equipment, manufacturing equipment. Japan, takes this right sizing of equipment. We buy our own, the equipment from outside, as I mentioned earlier also. So what they do is that if they have this approach of single piece flow, that is one piece is produced and it is just in time. So as per the customer requirement, say whatever the demand is, they see the demand pattern and reduce the footprint of the equipment. So if we are buying, say, equipment from outside, we cannot do much about it. So what they do is, like 50% of the Japanese manufacturers, they develop their equipment in-house. Then improvement in tools, jigs, fixtures, or development of integrated manufacturing systems. These are some of the things where I think we have a lot to learn from Japan. And this all leads to accumulation of manufacturing know-how, cutting-edge core technology that cannot be replicated by competition. So even Japan's hybrid car, it was developed not through the innovative approach, but through the incremental approach. And some of the key concepts which are behind this, they are like the Jeffrey Liker of the Toyota Way fame remarked, that besides the known 7 wastes, there is the 8th waste, which is the waste of people's creativity in the West. And I personally feel that in India, we are even much worse than what happens in the West. And I mean, the point number 2, you can really understand from this that in Toyota, a maintenance engineer is disdainfully called a catalog engineer, who, if he simply attends to machines, consulting the manual and not taking initiatives to improve them. So another important point is that do not escape through the investment route. Use your wisdom. And there is a lot of empowerment in Japan that standard like is valid till it is improved. In India, what we do is we develop standards and we tell people that this is the standard and you have to maintain it. Whereas in Japan, the workers are told that this is the standard till you improve it. And everybody is free to improve those standards. So, and then if a standard remains unrevised for 6 months, it implies that no one is using them properly. Then you also have this PDCA and SDCA approach. Now this is Plan, Do, Check, Act, and the SDCA is the standardize, do, check, and act. Now everything starts with standardization, and then you do the thing, check, and then improve. And then there is the PDCA cycle. Now, what is this SDCA cycle is used on the shop floor, and PDCA cycle is used for top-down goals. That means you plan for something, do, check, act. Once that improvement is brought into the products, then you standardize, and then the SDCA cycle comes to sustain it. Then, another important approach is the process-centric approach rather than the result-oriented approach. This result-oriented approach is that in India, if suppose you are meeting your target, like the volumes, but then nobody asks the question. Senior management doesn't ask the question. Whereas in Japan, they ensure that the process itself is good. There's not too much of waste there. And this is evident from the fact that many Japanese consultants coming to India are not engineers. So that means the people who are not engineers, they are just from the technical schools like the ITIs. They get so much trained through this empowerment and this entire approach that later on when they retire, they are going overseas as consultants. So, this is one example that you might have heard about TPM, which is the total productive maintenance, and the world-class journey for that. So to begin with, you are defensive. That means you eliminate all negative indicators, improve them, try to achieve the highest quality, lowest cost based on total employee involvement. And then in part 2, that means for after 3-4 years, you go for aggressive and sublime goals. Now, you see, Japan's tourism had a sublime goal of double the repeat visitors to Japan. And in 6 years' time, it increased 4-fold. Now, you see, just imagine that like we have Atithi Deva Bhava, that kind of goal. But the numbers have not really increased. Here, the sublime goal is that if you have to double the repeat visitors to Japan, then everybody, all the stakeholders have to really be involved in this. So a sublime goal is something which all stakeholders have to be totally committed to it. And the other example which I gave you was this reducing the the cost below the exchange rate, because Japan is dependent on exports. And then after say 6-7 years, you go for part 3, that is the innovative and creative. So there, you try to improve your business process end to end and set oneself apart from competition. You start with domestic industry, and then gradually go to global level. So why I'm trying to bring in this is that, you see, whatever we are discussing today, ultimately, I was told, as also I mentioned in my opening remarks, that we are doing it for Indian manufacturing. Now, if you see Indian manufacturing, the contribution to GDP was only 15% when we opened the economy. And even today, the contribution is 15%. So it has, in the last 3 decades, no amount of whatever R&D we talk about has really contributed to improvement in the contribution of manufacturing to GDP. So, and then this human capital building or sustainable competitive advantage, nothing we have been able to really generate. So I have just last week published this book. This is Becoming World Class, Lessons from Made in Japan. And of course, I've given only a brief outline of some of the key or salient features of Japanese approach to manufacturing. But this book deals in, expounds all those things from Japan. Now, just briefly, I'll touch upon some of the major, lessons that we can learn. One is this national competitive advantage. We are not talking at all about it. So even if we are talking about R&D, we have to first define this, what national competitive advantage we want to achieve. And then accordingly, the R&D has to happen. So if you see Japan, the industrial machinery, first machine is imported, and the second machine is produced domestically. This was the policy of the government, and all the industries in line with this policy had to develop the machinery in either in-house or in Japan. So second is automobiles, which is very widely known that how they have dominated the whole global market. So I'm not going into details. Even high-speed railways, Japan is known for it. So Japan started working on this high-speed railways just 7 years after the occupation of Japan ended. And within 5 years they did, and voluntarily they have had this policy of increasing the speed. So from 210 kilometers, they have come to 350 now. So, and of course, this bullet train is known here. So ultimately, their goal is that, you might have heard that Japan domestic market is closed. It's very difficult for foreign companies to penetrate. You know that Maruti Suzuki, which came in India in 1984, started production in 84, could export Baleno to Japan in 2016. That means 32 years later, they could really achieve the Japan quality. So Japan has really created a QCD, that's quality, cost, and delivery, as the national competitive advantage, which no other competitor can match. So that's one thing. Then, another is push the envelope or up the ante. I'll just, because of paucity of time, I'll just give you one example that this is second point from bottom, that you have a model machine, then model cell, model line, model shop, and model factory. So These are the concepts which are deployed by the management. So then everybody, it's participative management. It's everybody works towards that goal, and R&D also is involved in the process. And third, as I said, this integrated QCD is the joint responsibility of everyone. And so the approach is to have consistent quality, competitive cost, and on-time delivery faster and with less effort. So the corporate projects are developed. A to-do list is prepared upfront, and then it is implemented through the participation of everybody. So you will agree with me that there's nothing Japanese about these approaches. It is all common sense. And we should not be seeing R&D in isolation. We should first have big picture, and in which all the stakeholders, like you have talked about industry and academia. I think without government, nothing is going to happen. So the government has to come first. They have to provide the policy support. Second, as I showed you, first machine is imported, and next is produced within the country. So same way, we need to define what competitive advantage we want to achieve. And then, the policies, government support, and then the industry needs to, or the academia needs to train the people who are going to work in that industry. But then, having said all of it, we must not be oblivious of the fact that many the researchers or the talent that we produce, very few are willing to go to manufacturing, or many of them, their first goal is to go overseas and never come back. So ultimately, we need to tweak our HR practices. We need to really work together. That's the government, the academia, and the industry. Without which, if we see each, let's say, thing in isolation, it never helps, and which is evident from the current status of Indian manufacturing. So that is from my side. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for such a comprehensive learning for us. Sir, you have rightly said that R&D is a long-term investment and focus on developing own solutions for Make in India Abhiyan. I would say that in Japan, right sizing of use of equipments for quality and productivity, which is probably missing in India, that we need to adopt. Japanese approach like Kaizen, costing, and robust feedback system will probably help academic institution within the university to accelerate their research work and development process. You have also mentioned about import and produce the product as a competitive advantage for the industry, and then the role of academics comes into picture to change the people as per the technology. So this will definitely help the research development center at academic institutions to grow with the guidance which you have provided.
Just sorry, one point, if you allow me.
Yes, sir.
That it was during the 1980s that Japan really captured the US and European markets, and it was towards the end of 1980s that operational excellence was taught in the Harvard University or some other B schools. So I mean, the whole world has seen that how the Japanese have utilized the the mass, that means the total employees, not just the R&D or one particular function. So that is the biggest difference which we need to learn from Japan. And in US, they have made a lot of changes in their approach. And in these schools, they have started teaching this. And in India also, I think when it comes to industry and, academia collaboration, I think this um, this kind of collaboration to teach them not just theory but even hands-on on operational excellence would go a long way in improving the situation in India.
Yes, sir, that will definitely benefit to the students. So they will directly get the exposure to the industry during their academics. Thank you so much, sir, for your valuable guidance. Now I will move on to the next expert speaker, Dr. Roshan Palewar, sir, for his opening remarks. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much. And first of all, very fine good afternoon to all of you. I think it's indeed a great privilege to be part of today's session. And what I see the absolutely great theme of this entire INDCON conclave. And my kudos to both the organizing committees like Chamber of Commerce and Industry, at the same time with MIT World Peace University. And looking at the theme, there are so much of igniting thoughts comes when we think about the building the stronger research, the stronger research and development ecosystem, which is actually enabling the Saksham Bharat Abhiyan. This is such a strong theme, and when we look at this theme, there are so much of igniting thoughts, igniting minds get actually energized and to start thinking about what way we can contribute in the innovation process altogether. And fortunately today we are gathered, and then we are going to exchange the thoughts on the best practices in R&D with respect to the India, as well as the at least the top 10 countries with respect to research in the academia, as well as the industry collaboration areas. Let me tell you, since I come from the hardcore pharma industry, and especially when I look the industry much more closely from the research to commercialization process altogether, where I was working as in the capacity of global leadership positions in the global R&D, where I have myself delivered, developed, and more than 400 molecules, which possibly most of you have been taking that drugs and launched many products in the highly complex regulated market worldwide, including US, Europe, Japan, then Australia, and obviously the APAC region, including the SEMA region at the same time. So I see when I led the team of more than 600 scientists, where we used to work on the grassroots level on the different molecules in terms of their development and how that molecule can bring into the market at the earliest without compromising the quality, efficacy, and safety of the drugs, which is more important for the humankind actually. So I see the research actually is the backbone. This is a backbone for the greater future, for the better product and the highly effective drugs for the use of the human kind in terms of the treating various disease elements. And I see that today we gather where we have these we're using social media, where our Facebook members, Facebook participants, as well as Zoom participants. Let me tell you, next few moments I'm going to make you realize that how important the research is all about. And mark my words, this is going to be a very interesting session, and this is going to lead us to think much more louder than what we are doing currently. So as we come from the hardcore research background, and that to be from the pharmaceutical area, we understand the importance of research in much more way, because every single innovation that has been done, it has the commercial value attached to it. It has the implications. It has the safety aspect attached to the patient, because ultimately the product which comes from the R&D goes to the production area and ultimately leads to the market, has the what you call very most the areas of concern is about the quality and the efficacy, right? So no matter how best is your innovation is, it's equally important to have the right value for the propositions where it has been developed in the commercial context, because ultimately that innovation has to be in the real practical world. Otherwise there is no value of such innovation altogether, right? So with that remarking thought, I would like to share much more insightful about the industry, how the research is actually happens, and what kind of industry as well as the academia can work together in the betterment of the future of not only about the our youngsters, but also the future of the the entire ecosystem altogether. Because ultimately we have to believe in the concept of make in India and made in India, right? So today's we're going to have utilize all the infrastructures, all the resources and intellectuals in the common interest of building the better tomorrow, considering that resources and the infrastructure is always a constraint at a given point of time. So with that note, maybe I would like to share a, a PPT, if you can allow me to share that.
Sir, you have the rights, or able to?
Sure, I got it. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I hope it's visible to all.
Yes, yes.
Right. So let's understand and talk much more about the practical approaches, the best practices in the R&D, as well as with the key focus areas into the industry research and academic research. That is where we come together, right? And when I see from the pharmaceutical perspective, let me tell you that the entire global pharmaceutical industry, what we are into, before that, everything is about the research, So everything is about the research. And I see as a researcher, I put it very simple, in the definition, right? From my perspective, researchers are actually the professionals which are much more curious for the what do you call the investigators, as well as the purpose to design the research, design the formulations, design the product, collect the information gathered from the all the research throughout the period, and provide the insightful informations, so that there is a support to the business, there is a support to the government, there is also support to the what do you call the institutes, as well as in a larger context to the society. Because ultimately, whatever with the research that we are going to do, it's ultimately to make the decision much more stronger, and it should be evidence based, so that it ultimately used in the real human beings, right? That's what my point of view for as a researchers when I think about it, right? Now let's understand at the same time, focusing on the larger aspect of the solution is much more important, rather than just working on the smaller ones in the key areas, right? Because the problem that we're going to solve, which is not for the individual, but it is for the masses, right? And therefore, whether let's say, I understand most of us are joining from the academia, most of you might be pursuing some courses, and some might be working in the industry. But what is important in today's world is that whatever may be the course that one is undergoing or going to pursue, your research has to be such a way that it has the larger significance in the masses. Then only the value of research becomes magnified. Otherwise, we are going to do the work only for the sake of doing it, right? That shouldn't be our objectives. Why I'm saying that? Because look at the entire global pharmaceutical industry. Let me tell you, this is the industry which is growing steadily, no matter what happens in the external environment, in terms of the calamities or what it may be, the situation outside. This is the industry surviving and growing rapidly. When I look into the 2014, where it was standing at $1 trillion US, okay, and today in 2020 past, we as a global pharma industry standing at 1.25 trillion US, and that's the potential. That's the potential. But on going ahead, it's going to cross 1.5 trillion US. That's what the entire global industry, pharma industry, is working on the innovations, and therefore it is very important. It is very important for every single person who are part of the research, directly or indirectly, to start thinking in the direction of commercialization, start thinking in the direction of making your research more innovative, more usable, and there is an end application to the patient or to the user, so that the value of doing the research at laboratory or academia becomes much more valuable in the large context, right? And since we belong to India, let me tell you with the proud, the Indian pharmaceutical industry is standing at $55 billion by today. $55 billion market that the Indian pharma industry is altogether. And on top of that, the Indian pharma industry is actually ranking at top 3 pharmaceutical market in terms of the incremental growth. And surprisingly, we can see that the Indian pharma market is altogether the 6th largest market globally in terms of the absolute size. And that's the potential, right? That's the potential of the Indian pharmaceutical industry, Indian pharmaceutical research infrastructures, because it's not only what you call the economic, but also we have the right talent, ample amount of resources available to do such kind of innovation or research and make it into the commercial scale. And that's what the entire world is looking at India in terms of investment, in terms of doing the innovation, in terms of doing the commercialization from the Indian infrastructures, whether it's the what you call contract research or contract manufacturing. And now what we see at the same time, why it is so significant to do a research at Indian infrastructure is that when it comes to the export, we as an Indian pharma industry, we are exporting to more than 200 countries, and which is actually 10% of the world's production capacity, right? And today, the Indian market, in terms of the export, we are standing at 20 to 25 billion US dollars as a market capacity. And as we have seen and witnessed very recently, that India becomes the center for the vaccine manufacturings. That's the potential. And why it is so? Because we have that level of infrastructures, innovation, research, and right mindset to provide the such kind of innovation and make it available to the larger population from the commercialization, right? And therefore, it's really really important and equally important that we have to now start thinking our research from different perspective, rather than just doing the research for sake of doing it, right? We have to see the larger picture, because this is going to lead us in a manifold in the coming days. And let me tell you, the whole world is watching us. The whole world is watching towards the Indian infrastructures, whether it's the industry or whether it's the academia. And therefore, it is really important to have a collaboration between the industry and academia, and bring those platforms together. Okay, provide this ample opportunities for the youngsters who are pursuing their courses and they wanted to be part of the industry in the coming days, right? Now, what I see in a just nutshell, why I'm giving focus on the research, because every single drug, medicine that comes to the market, it is actually travels almost 14 to 20 years of discovery, and then only it comes to the market, right? So now look at the kind of the complexity, look at the kind of risk involved into the entire discovery of the molecules, which is not only a risky, but is also very costly. It takes almost $1 billion to do a single product innovation, development of a drug, and bring that drug into the certain product, either it's the tablet, capsules, or injectables, and bring to the market, right? So therefore, now what is happening is that the generics is coming into the pictures, right? Because this is where the generic pharmaceutical product, which actually crosses the complete discovery process and brings that into just 2 to 3 years, because of the novelty, because of its bioequivalence studies that we just need to perform it, right? So there's a very different processes involved into the innovation of bringing the generic formulations, which is again economical and easy, what do you call, the fast to the market, easy to market, right? And therefore, now the industries are actually shifting the focus and not only doing the discoveries, but also doing the generics. But now the next step is that doing the innovation into the biosphere, in the biotech areas, and bringing the biological products into the market. Therefore, those institutes, academias who are a part of the pharmaceutical and the medical setup, they should be now start doing their research much more aligned to the industrial objectives, to gain the maximum benefit, maximum output from the given research areas, which will motivate not only the youngsters, but also it will make them much more self-reliable in the coming days. And for them, there will be plenty of opportunities available, and industries actually welcoming every single talent to be part of the industry, to be part of the R&D, and thereby contribute in the development and the growth of the institute, as well as academia, industry, and thereby the nation, right? Now, I would like to bring to you your attention that there are at least top 10 therapy areas which are actually driving the entire market. And this is where we should think about doing the research in this particular therapy segments. This will not only attract the industry, but also is going to make the innovation or the research much more viable from the commercial perspective, because there is a greater demand. Look at this oncology segment. Oncology is actually standing top most, which is crossing more than 12% of the entire sales growth. Okay, whereas it captures the market share of almost 17 to 18%, right? And then after the immunosuppressant drugs, sensory organs, anti-diabetes category, the vaccine, which is now very much in demand, and there is a great future because now what we have witnessed is COVID-19. That is just one of the virus, and there are more than 1400, 1600 such strain of viruses are already available in the the virology center of the China Wuhan Institute, and therefore we can expect any such kind of such kind of attacks in the near future also. So now the trend is shifting, and therefore the research has to be in line with the trend, in line with the looking at the future, what could be, and therefore the selection of topics, selection of your the research line is very much important than just doing a research for sake of doing it, because possibly that will just going to provide you the, let's say, the successful completion of the project, but that may not carry the true value for the nation. Okay, and therefore it's igniting point that we should start shifting our focus, shifting our mindset, and doing the innovation much more, which is in the current trend and which is a demand for the future also. Now, of course, while doing all this, there are a lot of challenges comes into the pictures when working on the development, right? There are a lot many, what do you call, the problematic issues for ensuring the research integrity, and maintaining the good scientific practices. Because when we do a research, there are a lot of data get generated, and whether that data is realistic or has been manipulated, that becomes the question mark when it comes to the bringing that research onto the paper and into the reality. So integrity is very much important as a scientist when we start working on the bench level and developing the formulations and generating the data, and that will show the quality and efficacy of the our innovation, right? At the same time, there are the challenges when it comes to the size and the scope of the research enterprises. No matter what the innovation is going to be, but is it scalable? Is it open for the entire market or not? Or there is a restrictions with the specific geography? So that all that we need to think before we start doing the research actually. And of course, there are a lot of complexity when it comes to the collaboration, because sometimes as an industry also we need to collaborate, because there are some what do you call, the USP or some kind of advanced infrastructure available with the other institutes, other academia, or other companies. Then we need to collaborate, but there are a lot of rules and regulations to be followed, so that brings another level of complexity in the innovation altogether. But on the other hand, not only the infrastructure, but there are other challenges, the regulatory compliance, because every single day there is a advancement in the regulatory guidelines, protocol, and procedure to be followed, and therefore not only the academia but the industry has to be aligned with the regulatory requirements to comply and do the innovation with respect to that specific regulatory authority for that specific geography. Okay, and therefore it's equally important to have the industry sponsorship and bringing that, what you call, the entrepreneurial mindset or infrastructure or the environment within the academia setup, which is really important, because the students who are pursuing the courses, those who are already doing the research, they get the ample support from the industry at the same time, or maybe getting the right kind of mentorship, which brings their talent to the right forum, and thereby they do the right way of research. Now, let's talk about the development at the same time. So growth is equally important, because now we see that in the research domain itself, there is a lot of importance has been given to the information technology. We have very advanced tools, techniques, and software to do the smart innovation rather than doing the innovation in the traditional approach, which was a time-consuming process. And therefore, having the upper hand on the technology will not only save our time, but will also fasten the development process and bring the your idea into reality at no matter of time. And therefore we need to also start updating ourselves with respect to the advanced technologies available for the research. Other advantage is that now the research which is happening at the laboratory is no more at the local level, you know, whether it's a laboratory or whether it's the, what do you call, the institute. Now that research, if it has been clubbed with the global aspect, with the future mindset, and obviously that research becomes the globally available research. So the value of that particular research becomes manifold. And therefore it is important when we select the topic, when we do the research, we have to start, you know, thinking about our baseline, on what level that we are going to develop the, you know, certain formulation or certain product or certain services, you know, whether it has a limitations or whether we can serve to the larger population or not. That is something that every single researcher has to start, you know, digging their thoughts at early phase of their development itself. Now there is obviously there is a relevance of knowledge required in the certain fields, and that is what the mentoring comes into the picture. If you have the right mentor, right guide with you, so your research will kick off at early stage and will fly like anything in the coming days. So right set is you know, important for you know, fulfillment and development of your idea into the reality. What I also see that there are the 5 things that one should definitely consider before we start, you know, kicking off our research project altogether. This is especially I'm bringing this point from the student point of view, because they are the actually, you know, researchers who are about to start their research, and therefore it is very important that how we can actually seek the right information about the research program rather than just simply jumping to execute it. Execution is one of the tasks. There is a, what you call, the you know, planning, and then execution. So better we gather the right information and then start building your programs accordingly in that directions. Now, are we really doing the, you know, studies in the in the directions of our future, or we are just sake of doing the, you know, courses? That is something that student has to think about it, because higher studies is not as simple in terms of the continuous learning. Okay, so we have to get aligned with from graduation to post graduation, or even for PhD to postdoc. Our research, I mean the field or the program that you're going to select has to be very much aligned with the futuristic thought. Okay, so that therefore it is important to have a very concrete focus at the early stage of your career itself, right? Now, therefore, your current study area is not going to dictate what you have to study, what already studied in the graduation, right? That's what I was just wanting to highlight during my previous point. So no matter what the kind of specialization you've done at the graduation level, you have to get aligned with the futuristic aspect and bring that bring that, what you call, the learning culture within your early stage of graduations or the, you know, career path in that way. It's also applicable for the PhD students also. And when you move from graduation to post graduation and then to PhD, is a complete transformation. Is complete transformation, and you're going to witness that the kind of research that you used to do at, let's say, post graduation level, it completely drastically different and in line with your futuristic aspect when it comes to the PhD. And therefore, if you see that if your research in during the post-graduation thesis, it is been aligned with the need of tomorrow, then possibly you can start continuing those research in your PhD also, right? So these are the some things, some aspect that really makes a difference when we actually, you know, pin down everything at the early stage of our development itself, you know. Now, of course, there are a lot of options available in terms of the research, and actually the learning is a continuous process. So therefore, skills which makes you much more stronger in your respective research area has to be adopted. or upgrade it. If you already have some skills, you need to upgrade, because it's a continuous process. There are a lot many advancement happening every single day. While we are delivering this talk, there are a lot of innovations already going on, right? While using your smartphone, there are a lot many advanced, versions of your softwares are already been developed. So learning is a continuous process. And if you wanted to be conquer your research and your career, then definitely one should be conquering and upgrading their skill so that they become unique in the highly competitive market. And with that to be a perspective of the larger benefit of the nation rather than doing the benefit for your own sake. Okay. So let's come to the main point now. What I'm going to highlight is here, of course, since there is a right forum where we have to talk about the academia and also talk about the industry. Let me tell you one thing very clearly. Industry has lot many things that they could collaborate with the academia, okay? Because if you look into the industry, there are plentifully available funds and infrastructure with them. They're also equally open for the partnerships, and not only they're going to do the support for the placements of the students, but also there is a likelihood of having the common goals or objectives. Now, what happens with the industry is that they are short of time. Okay, there are many projects they're possibly working on. They are short of time, and therefore, if the academy has the right setup in the laboratory, okay, and you have the right skill set, which is obviously the students and obviously the academicians, professors, and in that case, industry would definitely more than happy to collaborate, because looking at this one, their operational efficiency get improves. There could be many solutions that academia can think and provide, because the youngsters, the crowd, the students that are part of the institutes, they have the very fresh thought, wild thought, I can say, and that possibly thought areas might be helpful in the innovation which industry might be looking at. Obviously there are the skilled resources available, and of course the market aligned courses. Now the courses that possibly undergoing right now, which possibly we cannot change at this point of time, but can we have some kind of a short courses or skill based sessions by the experts from the industry or somebody, so that the students can acquire those skill or knowledge and make themselves equipped for the future. And if that happens, then you can see the larger percentile of the collaboration of industry with the academia. And let me tell you, industry also always look for the right hand in terms of the partnership, in terms of the innovation, because if you have the right skill set, right infrastructure, and right mindset, that innovation can be scaled up to the commercial level at no matter of time. And therefore, academia also needs to come forward, and industry has to accept what the academicians are doing it in terms of their innovations, and therefore it could be the excellent source of the new ideas which I just mentioned recently. And industry is not going to help for the placement. Also they're going to absorb the graduates, postgraduates in a continuous process, and there could be a dedicated R&D center within the academia where the industry can shake hand with the many projects to do innovation at the academic level and provide then academia becomes service provider in that context, right? And the courses has to be tailor-made where the industry is required to do so. And of course it can't happen at one go. It's incremental growth. The incremental research could happen, and their product development approach could happen. There could be the technology can be developed at the academic level, which can be handed over or transferred to the industry, and then let industry do a commercialization of those particular technologies. So there is a great scope when it comes to collaboration. There are many areas that industry and the academia can work together in hand and provide the best of the services and best of the research in the best interest of both the parties altogether. And yes, industry is always open and willing to sponsor the academic projects, provided those projects are of blue skies rather than and the futuristic, rather than just in-house research which has a low industrial value. So here the thought for the academia, how are all of us are aligned with the futuristic development, futuristic innovation, futuristic development in terms of working with the industry and giving the best of the best product or services in the interest of the human mankind. That is something that we all together need to think about it. And yes, there has to be what you call the right collaboration, igniting the minds all together, because the trend has been shifting altogether. Today we all together thinking and seeing that the emerging trends are now using the technology in day-to-day research areas. For example, artificial intelligence. If I talk about artificial intelligence, the global market is all about more or less $28 billion. That's the potential of the artificial intelligence market. And let me tell you, the industry are using the AI into their day-to-day operations to bring the right product at early phase. Okay, there is a blockchain technology in terms of the continuous manufacturing, where the commercial manufacturing plants are using the blockchain technology to do the product manufacturing in a continuous process and eliminate the losses and bring the productivity at higher scale, which actually reduces the cost, and thereby there is a benefit to the companies in that way. Of course, the mobile technology is no more the IT area now. This is the part of the innovation, no matter what kind of field it is, that whether it is the science, medical, pharma, or any other sector. Mobile technology and the Internet of IoT, Internet of Things, are very much part of the innovation now, where it has been massively been used in the best interest of the everyone. And of course, not to forget automation. What we are living today is the old era. We have already entered in the 21st century, and automation and using all this technology, this is the future actually. This is the future. So no matter what kind of research we are going to do right now or in the near future, if that is get aligned with the larger objectives using all the advanced tools, techniques, and technologies, then that innovation has the larger objectives and larger value, which brings the worth of investment into that particular sector or into that particular therapy areas. So therefore, the big data itself actually another what you call the market segment. If I talk about that, the global big data market is all about 78 to 80 billion dollars market in the coming days, right? And this, from where this big data comes, there's all the innovation. There's also many data get generated during the process, and if that get rightly been set into and filed it and make the complete data set of it and using the technology, that become another source of revenue for the academia as well as for the industry, and to do the what you call the novel development in the respective segment. So the point is very simple. We have to start shifting our focus to the really required interest of areas, really required research areas, and bringing and doing from local to global. We have to raise our voice and start thinking in the larger context, because today what we are going to do, if it has a what do you call the virtual and in real world, there is a larger impact, then definitely those research, those ideas will be valued not only today, tomorrow, and forever. So that's what I just wanted to highlight to everyone. And I believe that mine is just like a parachute. It works best when it is open. And then let's open our mind so that we can fly high, do greater innovation, and fulfill the requirement of tomorrow. Thank you all for the patience listening. And I'm hopeful this is very insightful and helpful to all of us. And at the end, thank you so much, Dr. Shubhalaxmi and the entire team for giving the opportunity to share some thoughts with you. Thank you, and over to you.
Thank you, sir, for enlightening us on importance of research. I would like to congratulate you as you have developed more than 400 molecules with a team of group of 600 scientists. As you mentioned, research is backbone, and research is to be more innovative on the larger context. That is to bring the industry and academia on a larger platform to share their ideas will definitely help us. You have also said about research and development as a generic innovation in terms of bioscience product to motivate youngsters for their research. You correctly mentioned about the top 10 theory areas for research, and it is to be in line with the trend that will help the group of youngsters for bioscience in future. We are already, as a engineering and sciences, we are already using AI, blockchain, big data analytics, and data science for our research-based projects. And some of our research scholars are also working on these particular technologies that I would like to share you, and that will definitely help the students to bring good research in terms of industry as well as academia.
Sure.
Sir, thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
your
Ma'am,
valuable.
there is a question from Dr. Satish. If you allow me, I can respond now, or maybe in the QA session we can
Sir,
take
at
up
the
that.
end, I'm going
Perfect,
ahead with the
perfect.
question answer
Sure.
session.
Thank you so much.
So thank you so much for your valuable guidance, and that will help entire audience to think about the innovation in future. Now moving ahead with the next speaker, Dr. Kajri Misra, for her opening remarks. Over to you, madam.
Thank you, Dr. Shubhalaxmi. Okay. I don't think we have too much time because we're supposed to end at 4. So I'll keep my talk very short. I'm very happy to hear. Sorry, you were saying something?
Yeah, if you can summarize in say 5 to 10 minutes, we can take more questions.
Okay. So you don't want me to make my presentation?
Yes,
no,
sir.
Dr. Shubhalaxmi, please let her go ahead. No problem.
Okay. Thank
No,
you. Thank you, ma'am.
I will cut it short. I've already deleted a lot of my slides. So,
please, madam, no problem.
No, ma'am, take your own time.
I am very grateful to the previous speaker, Dr. Palewar, for actually highlighting one of the points that I am very conscious of always when we talk about research. That is, what is the mindset that we are talking about? And what stimulates research? How can we do research? But before I come back to that point, I would like to actually take a completely cross-cutting perspective on this. As a teacher myself for a long time, as a professional who's a design professional, and therefore creates all the time, whether as a consultant or whether when I worked as an architect or even in the classroom or when you design new courses, you create something. You may not undertake systematic research, but you're always interested in doing innovative and new things. I think that comes from a certain kind of approach. So I want to just put the discourse in a slightly different light. Let me share my screen. Okay. I understand we're talking here from two perspectives. One is the larger concern with the fact that we could be a much more research-oriented and research-based economy, where research and development go together and therefore add to our rapid economic development. That is one concern as a country. The other concern we also have is how do we get our students to actually feel curious and pursue research which is productive. I want to talk about these two in a very brief way. Let me give you a big picture. All of you know probably. We have a global innovation index which is done by the UNESCO. What are the countries who are the highest? South Korea, Germany, Finland, Switzerland, Israel. India is 48. Who are the high? Often people say, we spend so little on our research, percentage of GDP, etc. And that is one of the biggest hurdles to actually stimulating research in the country. Well, we do spend very little. Israel spends 5% and there are other high spenders. We spend less than 1%. But then we must remember that probably we are at a stage of development where we have other priorities. But should that stop us from a research mindset and a research economy? I don't think so. What is the highest? What is the countries? Which are the countries which have the highest scientific research publication output? I'm talking of scientific because this is also a nature and science index. which talks about mostly pure science and related outputs. USA has 20,000 and leads the pack. We are 13 and we have about 900. This is annual. In the top 80 journals, roughly 80 journals of science. This is the big picture. This is where we are. Now, most discussions I have been part of focus on the fact that the government should spend more. No doubt that is part of the requirement, but perhaps the problem is far wider than that. And perhaps we need to search for solutions elsewhere. Let's look at it from an ecosystemic perspective. Research does not happen. There are not just a few variables that will create a research mindset, a research economy, and processes which will actually give rise to much more innovation and creativity, and therefore entrepreneurship, and therefore an economy that boost. We start with how we think, and how we think is actually honed into us during our schooling. And what is the kind of schooling we have? Except for those of us, the very few who are lucky to be in a fairly liberal, fairly enlightened school, for the majority, it is about rote learning and very little space for curiosity, critical thinking, space for imagination development, for design thinking. We are also, to a large extent, our education privileges in many ways linear thinking rather than design thinking. Crafting skills, making things with your hands. You know, the idea of putting together something and creating something. We don't have it. In fact, we look down on making things like a carpenter does or a welder does. We look down upon it as, not our job. We want white collar jobs. We're not necessarily thinking of jobs in that sector, but I'm talking about the technical skills that you learn when you put things together and what happens in your head when you are trying to assemble a new product. And of course, the entrepreneurship, which is not in the restricted way that we talk of entrepreneurship of doing a startup, but I'm talking of having the courage and the skill and the interest to take forward what you are producing. Does our schooling give us this? And by the time we come to our higher education institutions, we are already in a certain mindset, right? First thing, what kind of institutions we come to? I think one of our previous speakers said, why is it that we have so many schools of business? How many schools for fundamental science do we have, or how many colleges for fundamental science? If the ISERs and NISERs had not come up, would we have high-end institutions of the kind in the country? So a student who is really curious about, let's say, something in physics, or wants to work on on animals, for example, where do they go? So fundamental research is actually fundamental to much of what we do, to how it changes our lives eventually. But do we have that? That's one question. What are we prioritizing in our higher education? The disciplinary separations don't help, because creation is about synthesis, about integrating diverse pieces of understanding together to create a product. Do we have those kinds of multidisciplinary approaches, even places where these things are encouraged? And finally, of course, what about our design sciences? As I said, creating things research is all about making things. And particularly when we're talking of product development, we're talking of research leading to product development and leading to some kind of entrepreneurship and production change, which will lead to a better economy. Then where is our design sciences in this country, in higher education? How many institutions we have? How many students get a chance to actually explore whether they can make something? I'm happy to say some of this is, of course, changing. The last decade has seen a lot of change, which reflects in our research outputs and what is happening in the country. But we are far, far behind the world. What about the research ecosystem within which these curiosities or searches for answers can happen? Well, there are institutions which are supported by the government. There are universities which are also mostly supported by government, but we also have a lot of very high-end private universities. There are research institutions that engage in research in a variety of disciplines. And of course, industry not only does its own research, but supports research, as we heard before, in a large variety of institutions, including research institutions and academic institutions. However, we have some kind of an issue here. In each of these, one would ask, what kind of an ecosystem within is created for research? How much of space and how much of the research environment actually exists in any of these places? There are outstanding examples. There is absolutely no doubt about that. But given the size and strength of our country and the number of our institutions, those are very thin on the ground. It is probably industry which has broken path in many ways in the last decade or 2 decades. Universities, we write a lot, we publish a lot, but is that leading to new knowledge always? We must understand that our publication rate or our universities also don't rate very highly on the world scale. And I say this because there is a country which was much behind us and has overtaken us, that is China. In the world ranking of universities, in the world ranking of publications, in the world ranking of innovations. So we need to think about what kind of a research ecosystem we have. I can go into each of these, but there's no time. But one more aspect which we are forgetting. Does it mean that without this ecosystem, we are not forever innovating? You know, we have this celebrated thing called jugaad. Supposed to be very good at it, right? What is it except entrepreneurship, except creativity? Doesn't the Aam Aadmi do any kind of research, so-called? If you're not in a laboratory, don't you create? Every time you bend a safety pin to do something else, because you don't have an implement, you are creating, you're innovating. Are we giving credence? Are we creating the mahol when you feel proud of these small innovations? When a person can go somewhere and say, you know, I've made this thing. Is it of use to others? Do we have that mindset anywhere? Where is the space and support for new product development? What is the quantum of support which people have talked about in terms of production percentage of GDP? But where does it go? How does it go? What are the channels? All can be questioned, and I can go into each of them and narrate a lot of those aspects that we need to look at. Second, what is our areas of focus? Again, I will go back to questioning whether we have fundamental research as a priority at all. And no country in the world has really progressed without the fundamental research. Let's be very clear on that. We're talking about countries which have already a base of fundamental research to take it forward now. We used to have in India too, but unfortunately that has not flowered over the years in the volume and quality and in the ways that it could have. Second is, even when you get support, who are the ones who get support? Where does the support and what channels does it come from? And one major issue, research is not a time-bound thing. You can't get a grant and then where you have to submit a report at the end of 9 months or 6 months or even 2 years and do it. In Germany, they get grants for as long as 12, 15 years because there is an understanding that some tasks, the complexity of tasks sometimes requires longer term research programs rather than a project. We are so projectized in our research across the board, wherever it is, that real engagement, real search becomes very difficult. With all I will add that there are caveats to everything that I'm saying because there are obviously these few exceptions that are always there. But I think those few exceptions, because the exceptions make my point. What is the expectation when we get support? If industry supports, they need a product. If government supports, they need publications, occasionally a product. But is publications the kind of output that we're looking for? And what kind of publications? One can talk a lot about that. And this necessity of publish and perish now that we have the regulators have imposed on academia is probably going to be the death of research rather than really stimulate any research, to my mind, in whatever I feel in the ecosystem. And of course, the support for entrepreneurship, increasing quite a lot now, very sharply increasing, very encouraging, but it was thin on the ground before, particularly if you're not in the government labs or in industry labs where you do get support because there is a payment at the end of the tunnel. So let me shift to the other end. Now, this is the ecosystem that exists. These are the conditions that exist. Does that mean there is no space for research, there is no support, or there's no possibility that we can really, really multiply our research? Well, I look to my students, to the next generation, to take on the challenges that we are leaving them with, challenges across health, across environment, climate change, the variety of challenges we are leaving them with. And all of them will require a lot of thinking, rethinking what we call research. So what do I tell my students? And which I will share here is, first thing is, you don't get a question from doing what is called a literature review. Two ends of the question spectrum. One is build on your curiosities. What are you curious about? What really you want to find out? Or on the other hand, look around you. What is the problem? What is the problem that you could solve? What is the need that you could create a product for? So the source of your issue, problem, question is not always in the literature. You need to look at it as to what is already known. But our structures of research, our protocols, sometimes stultify our thinking rather than encourage our thinking. I would encourage, as I do to my PhD students and also master students, I would encourage the younger generation to actually think beyond how we thought about research. For this, you have to be open-minded and widely aware. Also, let us not forget, we keep thinking that you start a research, you will get something very useful or a very good answer at the end or a product. Every success has innumerable failures behind it. Are we prepared for these failures? If you get a grant and you don't finally get an answer, a product developed at the end which works and which is marketable, is the industry willing to support you beyond that? Or government willing to support you beyond that? The understanding that every new innovation, every new understanding, it's a long haul to that and takes a lot of patience, failures, going through innumerable hurdles and challenges. I don't find this recognition anywhere from policy down to our practice across academia, industry, government. Of course, find problems around you. There are so many and you need to solve them. Take them, apply your mind. I am very excited about the fact that many, given our many competitions and other kinds of efforts to stimulate thinking and entrepreneurship and innovation, many youngsters are coming up with fantastic kinds of solutions to our problems. Small things, big things, but where are they getting these ideas from? They're getting it from their environment. Another thought is that we always talk of research and development. Look at the discourse today. It is research, R&D. That's the standard lingo. But does every research have to end up in a marketable product? Or, as I said, even despite your failures, should you aim at it? Well, it is good. It's wonderful if it is marketable, which means there is a demand for it and you are satisfying a need around you in society. So obviously it is great. But remember, other kinds of knowledge which may not be turned into a marketable product immediately are still important and needed for things that may happen down the road. To keep thinking that I am going to innovate and develop a product that can be launched in the market, that's great, but don't be disappointed if that is not so. Be happy if you've added to our understandings. That's what research is about. It's a search for new knowledge, for new understandings, not always a search for a product. And last but not at all the least, I would just tell my students, I always do this. I tell them, don't be bound by methods and techniques and methodologies. There are protocols which you can adopt. There are protocols which you must know as researchers. There's no getting away from that. Of course, you must know, but don't be bound by them. Research is about being innovative in the research process also, being creative, thinking out of the box, thinking how you can find the solution, how you can assemble a product, how you can create a product, what kind of product you can create. It all requires what we today, it's become a very popular phrase, design thinking. Something I didn't know being a designer myself. I never thought that I had design thinking taught to me in architecture. But today, I teach my students design thinking in MBA. So my concern is with the tight methodologies, the tight methodical pathways that are created for people to do research, which actually probably just are bringing or constraining your thinking. Can we go beyond it, is the question. Now, when we say, what do we do? I'm talking to students, of course, but ultimately it is for the academic institutions to see how they can create this environment. Not just how they can create tie-ups with industry or government for support for their students' research, which is of course necessary, but on the other side of the coin is internally, what kind of environments, what is necessary to create. We all have our protocols internally as academic institutions, our requirements. Of course, those have to be there, but look across the countries, look across the research programs in the universities. How are they structured and how are we structured? We need to understand how they have been able to foster new knowledge development, whereas we often fail in that as academic institutions. Another thought that comes to academic when I talk about creating the space and the environment for research is, let us not forget that what industry is talking about having, innovation. Our first speaker talked about innovation in Japanese industry. Our second speaker talked about in pharma. Industry is looking for creative, innovative people who can, add value and add not only to the company, but also thereby to society. But these people, what is the pipeline they come through? They come through us. They come through the academic institutions. And if that is not nurtured in the academic institutions, in the structure there, then everything we are talking about is not likely to flourish. And therefore the critical, I will end with this, I will say one of the critical areas to look at is the way academia is structured, the way our schooling is structured. And if our country wants to be a leader in innovation research and new knowledge development, new product development, that is the crux of the matter. Everything else needs to add to it because it is systemic. But this one is critical. And when you look at, yesterday you probably had a discussion on the new economic policy. I'm not sure what the discussion contained, but certainly I don't feel that the new economic policy is changed in a substantial way what exists, or in a way that will actually lead us to much more imaginative, creative thinking environments in universities and academia. And therefore, there is this big question about what we do. So I just wanted to share this because often we look at particulars. We forget that all those particulars are set in a larger context and environment. And however much we may want to expand or improve or strengthen those specifics, whether it is how industries are structured or how research happens within industry and what about partnerships. But unless there are some substantial other kinds of rethinking, some improvement is bound to happen, some expansion is bound to happen, but probably not the kind of flowering and long-term expansions that we are dreaming about. We can make these dreams a reality, but we need far wider systemic thinking and action. Who will do it? It is government, industry, academia together need to work towards recreating the entire ecosystem of knowledge building, of knowledge transfer and knowledge development, which is what we are talking about. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, madam, for sharing your views about R&D ecosystem consisting of quality education, government, universities, and industries together. You have rightly put across where we stand in research, and innovation. Is fundamental research is at place? Yes, it is a really question to be rethink. You have mentioned about space and support for new product development as challenges for rethinking about the research. So all this thing will again think us to go ahead further with the research with the industry, where student needs a lot of support in terms of space and support from technology perspective. Thank you so much, madam, for nurturing your views more onto the student-based research work. Thank you once again. Now, looking at the availability of the time, I would like to go ahead with the question answer session, where there are a few questions for the panelists. The first question goes to Dr. Roshan Palewar, sir. This question, madam, can you please stop sharing the slides?
Okay, sorry, I'm sorry. Give me a second.
Yes, madam, yes. Yeah, thank you so much. The question is about what is your views on industry academia collaboration and its role in creating best of the research and development initiatives in India?
Okay.
Roshan Palewar, sir.
Sure. So this question is from whom, by the way, if you know?
No, it is from our team.
Fair point. So, well, what I see is there is an ample scope and opportunity between both the parties, whether it's the industry or academia, which I rightly highlighted in the earlier talk, where academia has all of the right set of infrastructures and the mindset and the resources available, and which is very, very important when it comes to the core innovation, right? Now, what happens, the industry comes with a certain proposals, with certain projects, which is very specific to the certain areas of the development, right? And if those projects, which has been, having the right kind of support or the infrastructure within the academia, then you see the greater, momentum in terms of onboarding such projects into the academia, right? And let me tell you, academia has a very bright thought process, very great ideations. So those ideas, along with the the objective of the project, if there is a marriage between those, then definitely the output will be much more brighter actually. So opportunities are in many ways, whether it's a formulation development. I'm just talking from the pharmaceutical perspective, pharma and medical perspective. Of course, there are many other opportunities outside of this particular sector. But if I talk about this one specific to pharma, then the collaboration could happen on the pre-formulation studies. Collaboration could happen in the formulation development. It could be technology development. It could be developing a certain specific targeted drug delivery or certain technology which can deliver the right drug in the right dose in the right segment. Okay, there could be a collaboration to provide some what you call the skill-based courses for the even for the industry at one point. Okay, there could be a kind of collaboration in terms of building innovative formulations or service segment within the academia and the industry, right? So there could be a collaboration for doing a drug substance development, drug product development, stability studies. Okay, and there could be doing a collaboration for doing the market research. Okay, for example, if the management institute is also attached to the same umbrella, or even the pharma institute can collaborate on that line and do what you call the primary market research, so that the industry need not to spend so much of time for the same sake of study which has been possibly done by the academia. So that brings the value addition to it, and this has the manifold. I mean, it's like it's very simple. Let the both the parties sit on the table and discuss what could be offered to each others, right? And let me tell you, both are flexible in natures. Academia can upgrade to a certain extent within their within their boundaries, and even the industry can accommodate such kind of requirement which align with their strategic thinking. But only a matter thing that matters to the industry is two factors. One, the time. Okay, at what time that product could be delivered. If it is a time bounded, then industry would be much more concerned to do the development within the given time frame. Second is the quality. Cost is never the issue for the industry to sponsor the project for that. If the quality is being met as per the set specifications, set objectives, and set protocols, then nothing greater than that. So that becomes the very value addition from both the sides. Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir. The next question is for Professor Motwani. The question is, while there are many best practices to adopt from various countries who are leading in the research and development initiatives across the globe, what are the challenges faced by the institutions in India to learn and adopt these best practices, and how we can address them? It's a long question.
You are muted, I guess.
Sir, you're on mute.
I was talking from the manufacturing point of view. I was actually myself visiting professor in Hiroshima University in 2011 and 2012, and I was teaching in the department of MOT. The globalization and the approach of India versus approach of Japan. Now, you see, there we used to have about 75 students in each batch, and there were quite a few from the industry. And these people, they used to even have sessions where they had specific projects on which they used to receive guidance, and then go back and practically apply those, implement those projects, and then come back with what was the applicability of what they learned in the class. So that is something which I think MOT is quite popular worldwide. Especially in US and many advanced countries. I've seen it in Japan, which is something we can always introduce. And actually, there are many such academic institutions where they have this kind of program where people, those kind of programs are specifically meant for the industry, that they come for short-term courses, and then whatever they learn, it's purely the problem-solving kind of an approach. Go back, apply it, and then once again they come back and share. So what happens is that typically in a class, if there are 40-50 students, you have those presentations, and there is a lot of cross-learning. So, and that when they go back, they can always apply it. So what I'm saying is that, I mean, I said in my presentation also that, this academia and industry, and also the government from the policy point of view, more collaboration needs to happen. And it should not be, standalone that, okay, there is some policy and there is, R&D happening. And then ultimately there is no marriage between the two. So that is one thing which I think in India, we need the academic institutions can really emulate. I hope I have answered your
Yes,
question.
sir. Yes. That will help us. Again, shall I continue, Chanika madam?
No, ma'am, we are a little time bound, so I was sure like everyone is enjoying the session, but like I'm really sorry to all the panel members. We are restricted due to time, so I hope you'll understand. But definitely, we'll look forward in some other sessions because this is an opportunity no participants would like to miss, and there are a lot of questions.
Yes.
But just because of time, like we have to restrict ourselves. But yeah, that gives us an opportunity for some other session, of course. So that is great. I'll just request all the panel members to put on their videos, because as per the new normal, we shall have a group photograph, and a moment which we can treasure throughout the rest of our lives. May I please request all the panel members to put on their videos? Neeraj sir, please confirm once we are done.
Yes, done, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Before wrapping up the session, I'd definitely not let this opportunity go. May I please request Praveen Patil sir to tell us something on the parting note.
Sure, Chanika, thank you so much. First of all, on behalf of IMC and MIT World Peace University, let me thank our speakers for the day, Mr. Motwani, Mr. Roshan, and Ms. Kajri. I think we had good inputs from all the speakers today. Thanks to Dr. Shubhalaxmi Joshi for moderating the session very well. I was carefully listening to the discussion, and I must say it was quite an enriching presentation made by each one of you. And all I want to say is that INDCON is a series of events which are happening across the country. This is the I think 7th and the 8th city in the country that we are in right now. And we will be going to other cities as well. And every city, every location that we are going to, we are preparing a white paper, and all the knowledge that we are gaining through the enriched experience of our speakers, we will be creating an overall white paper which will be presented to the government of India to be able to help creating an ecosystem which is friendly for the industry, academia, overall development, and the research and development that is happening in the private universities today. So every input that we received from you, be rest assured, has been captured. We've been recording all the sessions, and we will share a copy of the white paper of your region with you post the event. And once all the locations are done, the master white paper also will be shared with you on what we are going to present to the government of India. Thank you very much for your time. This wouldn't have been possible without you, all of you esteemed speakers, giving your time, to interact and, discuss this matter of extreme importance, which is research and development ecosystem of the country, enabling Saksham Bharat Abhiyan. Thank you very much for your time, and look forward to seeing you in the forthcoming sessions also. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you.